Hey everybody, it's David coming to you today from the top deck of our house in Dallas. I'm actually home for a week before leaving next week on, gosh, I think I'm going to be gone for 8 weeks. Um, First of all, I just wanted to tell you thanks for letting me crawl into the class a couple of weeks in. I've really enjoyed reading your papers and getting involved in the discussion boards over the last 3, 4 weeks. And so just wanted to tell you good luck going forward in your uh, classes and your desired careers. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, make sure that you give me a call. You have my phone number and email address on the syllabus. So please do that. So let's do this. Let's review lesson 6, and then let's preview the final week, lesson 7. Okay? Lesson 6, the first discussion board talked about motivation. And one of the key messages I hope you get out of this is that motivation varies by individual, which is why I think it's very difficult for a boss or a leader to says, motivate your team. Well, each person responds differently. Each person is motivated by something different. So in order to do that, you'd have to be one-on-one with everybody in your team. And so to me, motivation for leaders involves creating an atmosphere where people's individual motivations can come to the surface. And so that's one of the key things that I think is very important. One of the statistics that you see in survey after survey is that today bosses are more important than companies. People will leave a company not necessarily because of the company, but because of their boss. And so the leader in that company has a big responsibility in going forward. Many people talk about money being a motivator. Well, money is a motivator, but survey after survey says it's not the top motivator. And so those things that you have to look for and you have to find in individuals that provides, again, the self-motivation for them to move forward, I think is key. So it's about creating an atmosphere where individual motivation can grow and thrive. The second discussion board this week talked about respect and genuineness. Respect and genuineness. Employees today are smart, and they can spot a fake a mile away. And so, in order to be respectful, you also have to be genuine in that respect, or they're going to look at you and go, man, that person's just blowing smoke at me. They're just saying that so that I'll do X, Y, or Z. And if that happens, you've lost them. And so, one of the key things, not only with motivation, is doing it from a genuine perspective, so that your employees know you're not just in it for you or for the company, that you have their interest in mind as well. And then in the assignment, you had several different things where you could create some scenarios for motivation, and those are fun to look at. I haven't started looking at those yet, but we'll look forward to seeing how you responded to that. Okay? So that was lesson 6. Lesson 7, the final week. The final lesson talks about power and influence. Power and influence. Now, one of the key things that's going to be very important for you as you go forward in this is for you to have a definition of power, because your definition of power and my definition of power could be two totally different things. And one of the key things that I hope you get out of this, and you can use this in subsequent classes, is in many classes they ask you to compare two terms or compare two situations. And in order to do that, you have to come up first with a clear definition, because the person reading it may have a totally different definition of the words than you do. And so if you're writing something about power and you don't define it for me or for the other readers, then I'm going to look at that whole paper through the lens through which I view power and the way that I define power. So I would encourage you as you do this to make sure very early on in the paper that you define what you mean by power, what you mean by influence. Because to me, power doesn't mean force. And that's one of the things today, if you think about some of the definitions of power, you think about people who have the authority and they're forcing their opinion, their way, their thoughts on you. And that's not the thing that I think about power. I think about power more from a finesse perspective, because sometimes you have to use force, but other times you can use finesse in order to get that. And that's still a way to exhibit power. And so, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but make sure that you have a clear understanding of what you mean by power as you go forward. Okay. The second one talks about impressions and the impressions that you give, that you have, either through your words, your actions, or those types of things. One of the key things that I talk to the marketing class about when I teach marketing in the undergraduate program is I talk about the emotional connection that's required for advertisers today to get their message across to consumers. You think about the Apple iPhone ads, and the iPhone ads don't go through a tremendous amount of features and benefits. Some of them don't have any words at all in them. They have music, and they show people in their everyday lives using the product. And so what they're doing is they're creating this emotion in the advertising. And so part of the impressions that you'll have through here with a guest, if you're running a hotel or something, or with employees, is that emotional connection that you create with them by the way that you approach them or the way that you communicate with them. And so that's one of the key messages, hopefully, that you'll get out of discussion 2 in lesson 7. And then the assignment this week, you're presented with some mini case studies from the book, and it asks you to select one of those and to follow through and go through on that. Okay? Again, I've had a great time the last few weeks, and I look forward perhaps to having you again in another class at some point in time down the road. But in the meantime, best wishes to you in this class, the final week, and then in your studies as you go forward. All right? If there's anything I can ever do, make sure you contact me. Take care. Have a good day.